Now, somebody, asks me from time to time, do you do preaching engagements? They'll ask me. And I say yes, if I'm invited. But, the pulpit that God gave me is this television camera that I'm sitting in front of right now. And the thing of it is, I'm kind of in, I'm an open trans person now, number one. And I can read an evangelical book. Okay, the writings of Amy Semple McPherson, which is very evangelical and Pentecostal. I can read the teachings of Amy Semple McPherson, or I can read the liberal teachings of the Episcopal Bishop John Shelby Spahn, and get God's truth out of both. That's right. I can read books by evangelical, religious, conservative Bible scholars, or from the liberal end of the post, and find the truth of God in both, because I don't believe that any one system of religious teaching can lay claim to having all of the truth. But we are constantly searching for truth on this finite level of existence, and one day when we stand before God, when we go from the finite to the infinite, then, Paul said that in 1 Corinthians, we see in part, but then we shall know. We see through a glass darkly now, but we shall know then as we are known. But in the meantime, as a finite person who's hungry for the truth of God, I can accept the truth of God whether I'm reading books by Amy Semple McPherson or Catherine Kuhlman, or books by a liberal Episcopal bishop like John Shelby Spahn, and see God's truth in both. And I wouldn't have it any other way. However, this does set up a little dilemma of sorts when it comes to which churches would invite me to preach. You see, people will watch and listen on television, or even on the internet now that we're on there, things they would never go to a church. They would never go into a church to hear me speak or be publicly identified with a church that accepts me, but they will listen to things that I have to say. And I have both evangelicals and liberals that watch my ministry, and because I'm not identified with any particular church, but the pulpit God gave me is in front of this camera, people who label themselves as agnostics and atheists tell me, I've heard it hundreds of times over the years, that I am the only religious person they watch because I am not identified with any particular church, liberal or conservative. So the thing of it is now, in the Pentecostal churches, now that I'm an open transsexual, they have no problem with my theology when I preach about salvation through the blood and the blood atonement. I could go to Portland Foursquare Church and preach a sermon on the Foursquare Gospel, and they would love it. They would accept me if they felt God anointed me to preach, whether I had a biblical seminary education or not, and they would accept me. But they don't accept the transsexuality. So therefore, if I was a heterosexual man, I could go and preach in these churches. I've had friends of mine in these various churches say that if I went back to living under the other identity, I could probably have a big following as a, quote, man of God, unquote. Now you get over to the other side of the fence in the liberal churches, including the one that I'm a member of now, where I get to sing in the choir as Paula and sing bass, but they don't want me to preach. They accept the transsexuality. The Foursquare Church wouldn't accept the transsexuality, but they accept my preaching. But the church I'm going to now won't ask me to preach because I'm too evangelical. They accept the transsexuality, but they don't accept my theology. But what they don't realize is they underestimate me. I can preach to a liberal congregation or a conservative congregation as either one and have them be blessed. That's a unique gift that God has gave me. So therefore, because the people that have God all confined to their little man-made boxes and their Augustinian theological jars, and that God is confined to the teachings of their denomination, and if you don't go along with what they teach in their denomination, they have the truth and you are in error, and that everybody and only evangelical Christians are going to be in heaven and everybody else is going to be in hell, you know. And of course, I don't buy into that, but I can preach to both sides of the aisle. But in the churches, they won't invite me because they are too confined to their concept of God in their own little box, whatever it is. So God stepped right over the church walls, right over the denominational walls, and put me on television. And I have not only liberal and conservative Christians that watch me and acknowledge that God is with me of a truth, but also people that never darken the door of a church, that don't believe in God, that consider themselves atheists and agnostic, and yet they will listen to me through this venue. And so God has put me for 25 years, over 25 years actually, I preached the gospel as an open trans person on television, preaching the message that I know God has given me to preach.